The way I would describe Twisted Metal, a super high-action car combat game.
It spoke to this kind of heavy metal, rock and roll, bad 70s, 80s, you know, hard rock album cover art vibe that I've always loved.
Twisted Metal is a lobe in my brain.
Hard rockin' car combat at its finest.
Cars would drive around an imaginary city and shoot at each other.
Twisted Metal Universe was never slated to be a very Saturday morning cartoon.
Twisted Metal, on a certain level, is still Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
There's a spirit and a soul to the Twisted Metal universe, and it's American, and it's rock and roll, and it's underdog, and it's scrappy, and it's kind of heavy metal. I started at Sony as a tester right out of college. I had no clue what I was going to go make movies. It was my plan. And I worked on some games for Sony, and then this it was actually funny. Me and my design partner at the time we were kind of hanging by a thread. I mean, we pissed off all the developers we worked with. We thought we knew everything. We knew absolutely nothing. And our boss called us in when he heard about these guys in Utah who were working for the military, and he says, "Look, I remember this meeting. He's like, look, my feet are at the fire on this with you guys. It's like this is kind of your last chance. It's like, don't screw this up."
My thing was when I first got into the industry, and I sat down with David Jaffe, and you know, I was coming from a very conservative engineering development environment, working with government and people that wear suits. It was very refreshing to see all these ideas just come pouring out, and I thought, oh my God, how am I gonna harness this? How am I gonna, you know, try to take this and you know, turn it into a production environment?
We had gotten back from Utah the very first time when we saw this three-dimensional database, and we saw basically what 3D gaming could be, and we were stuck in traffic out by the LA airport. I think it's sort of at least for me, and I hope I'm not making myself crazy here, but I think it's a natural fantasy people have to be stuck in a car in traffic and just want to have missiles and guns on your car.
And I thought, wow, this is so obvious. Hasn't someone else done this? And it was a great pleasant surprise to know that, well, no one has done this, so I was pretty excited, and it was pretty straightforward. So for me, I kind of like the more simple type of game concepts. You kind of see this game for what it was just at the concept levels.
And we were so excited, and we wrote up this big design document, and we sent this off to these guys. And about a week later, the guys in Utah sent us back this document, which was a pizza delivery game.
At the time, that sounded really cool, and it would have been such a disaster because how many times can you sequel a pizza delivery game?
I don't remember how we somehow talked them out of the pizza delivery game. I'm not very articulate now, and I certainly was less articulate then, and it may have simply been me on a phone call going, "Are you out of your mind?"
When the game was shown to Ken Kutaragi out in Japan, and this was towards the end of the game, his comment was, "When are we going to replace these graphics with real graphics?" That feedback got back to us and the team, and we were just like, what the hell? You know, it's like, we don't have time to change these graphics. They are what they are. The other interesting comment that the Japanese had, a request to switch the weapons out for, instead of firing missiles, firing food groups like vegetables and fruit. We were pretty sure that Sony Japan was not real happy with the title.
We had this focus test with these hardcore gamers that came in, and they just tore the game apart. This was towards the end of it. We were about to put it into marketing, get money from marketing to advertise it, and they played it, and it was the whole night they were making fun of it.
Yeah, the description of it was it's a fighting game in cars. And so the focus test was comprised of hardcore fighting game gamers. And they just didn't really get, how this was a fighting game in cars.
I said, I'm going to start looking for a new job tomorrow because they're going to fire me because this is a disaster. And it turned out not to be. It turned out that we ended up, and I was stunned because somebody told me, oh, you guys got Game of the Year. And I'm like, what are you talking about, right? And then it turns out, and I won't mention the magazine because I don't think legally we can, but we ended up getting Game of the Year from the most prestigious game magazine that was out at the time. And I was just, it was amazing that it all actually worked. I mean, this was the first big game I had ever done. It was the first game these guys in Utah had ever made. And we ended up with a game that a lot of people really, really loved to the point that we were getting these major awards. And so it all worked out. I have no clue how. Maybe we all just got really lucky. I don't know. But it was cool. It was very, very cool.
Congratulations! You have won my contest.
I hated the end movies for Twisted Metal. I just thought they were extremely cheesy.
And we just and I, and you, and them, you don't know!
I did think that some of them turned out a little too hokey.
I am the winner, and you are my prize.
If the movies somehow had wound up in the game, it might have hurt Twisted Metal 1.
I didn't realize any of this at the time. I thought I was making, my calling card into Hollywood.
You'll drive forever. What do you say, Mr. Cage? Sounds good to me, baby.
They were terrible stories, and they were terribly written.
I think that was part of the charm and appeal to them. But, first and foremost, I think some of the content was, very offensive to some of the people on the team.
We want more! Done.
And the guys in Utah just hated them and thought they were offensive and terrible. And
We basically had to, do the damage control to make sure that, we ended up with a great product. But unfortunately, the movies were one of the casualties of that.
I was upset because no one was going to see my masterpiece of hot, sexy women standing around a crumpled, twisted metal car and, spouting off stupid lines like, "Here's your paper bag, sweet tooth."
Oh, man. Give me that. Give me! A paperback? You can't be serious.
I think for what they are, they're really fun and campy and they add to it, but, they never quite saw the light of day. And I was really disappointed at the time. Now I can look back and be grateful that it was actually a really good lesson that I should never be a film director and I should never, ever get behind a movie camera because only bad things can happen. We thought Twisted Metal 1 was a flop. We didn't know if we had careers left at Sony.
Luckily, it was good enough to warrant a sequel, and that's when we were able to really kind of pull out all the stops and do a lot of things that we wanted to do with the first version.
We really, were excited to get into the second one because then we felt like we knew, really how to make it the game that we wanted to play.
We knew that Sony wanted to do a sequel, and I know Jaffe, Michael Jackson, and I were really excited to basically put in a lot of the things that we didn't do and improve on a lot of the things that really sucked in Twisted Metal 1. The darkness, the graphics, the controls, the list goes on.
And so we were like, okay, we have to fix this. We have to fix everything that we screwed up in the first place, which means, we went so far as to say, let's forget them being cars. Let's make them hover cars because they'll be easier to control.
We talked about hovering cars and cars with insect legs, that could climb up buildings and things like that.
Let's make them insects because insects don't move as fast and they can't get caught on objects. I mean, we were looking, we would go into like stores and watch people play the game on kiosks. And they were banging into walls, they were going too fast, and it really wasn't a very pick up and play game. We thought that was the reason we were getting such bad focus tests and play tests. And so we were doing everything we could to sort of remedy that. We even said, let's forget the car combat, let's do missions. Like you're a car and you've got missions like, a secret agent, but you're in a car. And then the reviews started to hit, and then the sales started to come in, and then the people on what at the time were sort of the BBSs and the sort of the beginnings of the internet started to sort of write about, oh my God, this game is awesome.
My favorite Twisted Metal moment, probably a lot of people feel this way, is when the Eiffel Tower came down for the first time.
The Paris level was probably one of the bigger or more popular levels, mainly because, of the, you could drop the Eiffel Tower and it would open up kind of a whole other level, which was the rooftops of the Paris buildings. And, it was something that was just such a cool level that we all wanted to try to make it work. I just kind of, it was actually during a single track staff meeting that during the whole staff meeting, I just started off with kind of a grid with some angled streets and then, put the Eiffel Tower. And the question was, could we afford this? It kind of became a mission for us to make this level work. I remember when you looked at the level and we started reviewing it, and I remember Jaffe saying, dude, if you could make this thing work the way that you're saying it could work, we got to do it. I have to say, because of the graphic style, I never really thought that there was any sensitive nature up until a member of the French press came to Singletrack to look at some of the levels, and he was quite offended when he saw the Eiffel Tower go down. It kind of just fueled everybody to kind of get more wacky and destroy more sensitive type of icons. And we try to get that gameplay and the dynamics and everything working as early on in the process as we can. That way we get gameplay kind of leading the development and production charge, and that, in our case, that's always first and foremost, gameplay, gameplay, gameplay.
I loved working on the mechanics of Twisted 2. I love the idea of, can we build depth into the gameplay? Can we build strategy into the level design? I thought that was really, really exciting.
I think all those things factored into it as, making it the best of the series. Doing Twisted Metal 1 and Twisted Metal 2 took an enormous toll on myself and the rest of the team. And to really not have any financial upside that as a result of that really started to I think affect myself and the rest of the team. We put so much time and effort into these titles, and now they were seeing decent success, with Twisted Metal 2 being a $1 million+ seller. We started to have conversations of, wow, this really sucks to pour your heart and soul into something, put your family on the back burner, and at the end of the day, what did you get from it? Well, a reputation for making a good, fun car combat game. That wasn't enough. Going forward, and I think that really started the start of the exodus of a lot of us. Regarding Twisted Metal 3 and 4, I think my reaction and many other people on the team is, what have you done with our baby?
I didn't really play Twisted Metal 3 and 4 very much. To me, they weren't really Twisted Metal, because they didn't have the same feel at all.
When they said that the guys from Utah weren't going to be doing Twisted 3, it was going to be the guys in San Diego, I was like, all right, I'll help them out if I can, but it's not that I didn't care, screw Twisted Metal, I don't care, but I had sort of moved on, so it didn't really bother me. It only bothered me once the games came out. You have to sort of understand the world of Twisted Metal to make a Twisted Metal game. And I think what those guys got was they understood it sort of at a marketing level. Twisted Metal's cool, and the characters are dark, and they're wacky, but it was done like a 40-year-old trying to be cool, versus actually somebody who got the world and loved the world and respected the world. It felt more like they were trying to sort of, they were like posing, basically. And I think it really comes through in every aspect of those games.
So, Sweet Tooth, your wish is to eat all the candy and ice cream you want? Your wish is granted.
Oh, Jesus, when I saw the Sweet Tooth character design for 3 and then 4, which was Worth, I mean, he looked like a Carney Barker with these stupid neon purple pants, and it's like, what is this? Sweet Tooth is, like I've said, Sweet Tooth is me. Sweet Tooth is the darkest, most animalistic side of me, and you guys are turning him into a joke. You know, I know the guys who made 3 and 4. They're good guys. Some of them have moved on to make some really great games in the industry. But those games, you know what I'd say? By and of themselves, I think there are things in those games that are certainly cool. And there's good work in those games on every aspect, code and art and game design. That's not to say by themselves they're bad games. They're just bad Twisted Metal games.
So that's when we set out to start Incognito on the new platform, PlayStation 2, with Twisted Metal Black.
Black was tough because we knew we were getting the series back, me and the guys in Utah, and we knew we weren't relevant anymore. We knew that the industry had moved on. We knew that sort of what was edgy and cool in 1994, 5, and 6 was no longer edgy and cool in 2001. And so what I was in love with on Twisted Metal Black was the world, and the tone, and the characters, and the stories.
Sony would let Dave do really kind of risque things. They were graphic, they were bloody, they were gory, and they weren't just made for, you know, little tiny kids that were probably never intended to play Twisted Metal, especially by Twisted Metal Black.
You know, at the time, a lot of people were looking for really arcadey, bright, happy-looking games, and to make this shift to a really dark game was really sort of a gamble in a way. We knew that we were going for a totally different style. It was going to be a more mature game. We wanted to be dark and kind of foreboding.
For the first time, we were important. We were feared.
And feel like a dangerous world.
A lot of times you think that when someone has these kind of ideas, you're thinking, are they trying too hard to be edgy and cool and not nerd-like, or do they really kind of think this way? And it really became obvious that in the case of David Jaffe, there really is some deep, dark, evil motivations that kind of, I think, spark his imagination.
There were things I wanted to do in Black that they wouldn't let me do, and some of it was just so okay, some of it was valid, right? We had a scene with the preacher who thought he was performing an exorcism, but he was crazy. He was really being asked to perform a baptism, and so he drowns this. Well, we had this great shot of, and I have kids, right? I love kids. I'm a nice, gentle guy, but it's a fantasy, right? And in the scene, there was this great shot of him pushing this little, 5-day-old into the baptismal, into the water, and his little arms and chubby little legs are kicking around in there, and he's just like shoving the thing down there, because in his mind, he's like exorcising this demon. Sony made us cut that. Now, I understand that. That makes sense. As much as I would have liked to have seen that, I understand that. But then you know what it was? It gave people within the company an opportunity to kind of play the, aren't I noble and pious, and aren't I normal card? And it's like, you.
The voice inside me was a figment of my imagination. My God, it was all in my mind.
It was just an opportunity for people to act like, I want to say something and I want to make a statement. It's like, please get the out of my kitchen. I'm trying to cook this stew.
A man cannot hide from himself. There is only one path before me.
A big part of making a game is just getting a visual image of what this thing's going to look like. We had a machine now that we could really do some nice graphics on, you know, take it to a different level. And this one was the first time I felt like we were really creating a universe, a place that was apart from the world, that when you go into it, you feel like you're really in a consistent, interesting world. I still really like the suburbs in Twisted Metal Black. That was the level where we had these concepts and we had rendered it on a PC, and to see that turn into a level that you can actually play and keep the art style and the personality. It holds a special place in my heart. I still really like that level just because of those things.
I definitely don't think it's the best game in the series. I think 2 is still the best game in the series. I think, honestly, at that time, I had gotten bored of the mechanics of the series. And so what I was in love with on Twisted Metal Black was the world. And I think because of that, the gameplay actually suffered. It was too hard. It wasn't creative enough. We really tied ourselves up being forced to every level having the same color palette of browns and blacks and grays and clouds in the sky rolling by. And I think the core experience, the interactive experience of that game really, really suffered because of it. And the good news is, just from a career standpoint, we had enough of the other stuff. We pulled off the atmosphere so well, and some of the sort of surface stuff so well, that we kind of got a free pass on the fact that the gameplay was good, but it wasn't great. But I definitely think it's probably the least quality gameplay. I think 2 is the best, 1 is the second best, and Black is the third best.
The cars would get designed first, and then characters, we would talk about cool, compelling, weird, wacky type of characters. And that was just kind of a process of applying those different characters to the different cars. And that was always a fun process, and one that really endured a lot of changes throughout the development. And, that used to really frustrate the hell out of me. It's like, wait a minute, why is this character now in that car? Jaffe, what the hell is going on here? But there was always a good, sound, solid reason for it. And, again, in the end, the characters, I think, really were a good fit to the cars.
A lot of times with characters, it's Dave Jaffe sends us this wacky stuff that we go, what is this? It's like, he sent us these photos of something we called Zipper Chick, and it was a large person in leather with zippers and holding fetuses and things.
My favorite character would have to be Mr. Grimm.
I think my mind bent so much it snapped in two.
I just really like the whole, the speed of his motorcycle. He can get into and out of trouble quickly. I like his, the Gatling gun sidecar is really cool. You can never go wrong with a skull helmet. I mean,
Axel was, tied up in those tires. In order to gain his freedom out of the huge tires that he was molded to or robotically connected to, he literally ripped his arms out of the tires. We had some dripping blood, some disgusting sound, and I just never thought we were going to get away with it.
Oh my God! I am a free man, and you are no longer my father.
There was a character that was named Scott Campbell in the game, and he was the driver of Spectre. I was pretty stoked about the character. In fact, I really didn't even know that he was going to be called Scott Campbell until I saw it show up. It's kind of a surprise, always usually a pleasant surprise when you find out, wow, I wonder what the backstory is on this one.
I love Sweet Tooth. My first memory of Sweet Tooth was we had a list of potential vehicles and characters, and one line said, ice cream truck driven by demonic clown.
Here's where Sweet Tooth, I think, came from now. At 36 years old, I can tell you. So I actually spoke to a therapist about this several years ago, and I said, okay, Kratos, who's a character I had a huge hand in creating from God of War, and Sweet Tooth, who's a character I had a huge hand in creating for Twisted Metal. both of these characters are testosterone-fueled, aggressive, animalistic. They take exactly what they want when they want it. And I'm not going to go into too many personal details about my life, but let's just say for the longest time, certainly when I was developing those characters, that wasn't who I was if you saw me walking down the street. But I can promise you that that's who I was underneath the surface.
As much as I had those old urges of mine, I kept them to myself for the moment.
It's interesting how who you really are and what you really want ends up coming out in your creative work. That was such a revelation to me when I realized that I realized that Jesus, Sweet Tooth is me. You know, Kratos is me. You know, that was both terrifying and very, very exciting.
But I think it's run its course. It's spanned through 3 different platforms, and again, I think sometimes it's good to leave on a high note.
We know that it entertained a lot of people. We know it kept a lot of people up late.
Anytime a game does not have good characters and good stories, you just end up with a lousy game.
We need to find what is going to spark something, that gets people interested in a genre again.
The spark will come back, and we'll have a lot of really cool new ideas. I would hate to say that it's farewell. I hope down the road, maybe someday we'll see it made into a movie.
I don't think we're the kind of beloved series that really goes down in sort of gaming history as like, oh my God, that's one of the best games ever. But I love that position for this series. I think that's what the series, it feels pure to me. It feels like that's what it's meant to be. And when it resonates with those kinds of people, that makes me really, really happy. There's a lot of hardcore fans of the series, and they'll write to us and they'll call us and tell us all this stuff that we don't know.
My favorite Twisted Metal level? I'd have to say it's Moscow and Twisted Metal 2. There's something about the balance in there. There's not enough weapons. Needs to be more weapons, but something about that ball design is freaking nice and balanced.
We've been really fortunate that we've had great fans and lots of excitement, in the marketplace for our stuff, and that just makes it all worthwhile.
Twisted Metal 2 to me was a classic game in my eyes, but I was craving a game that was a little darker, a little more violent, a little more disturbing, and Twisted Metal Black definitely delivered that hands down.
Thank you for all the great feedback that we've gotten over the years. I think it's really helped shape the game for the better.
Let's talk Twisted Metal. I love Twisted Metal, and the reasons have changed quite a bit over the years, but the thing that's always been constant from day one is that it's just got, to me, the most incredibly deep multiplayer experience.
To the fans of Twisted Metal, you guys are loyal, you guys are passionate.
For whatever reason, Twisted Metal has always just been a very good game for replay value. It never gets old for me, and a lot of people from TMA just feel the same way. And we hope you guys keep that up. It's really a tremendous aspect of the series.
That you care enough about what we do to write about it, to blog about it, to make boards about it, and most importantly to play it and to enjoy it. And so thank you so much for caring about our work. That means everything to us.
I love Twisted Metal because I love fast-paced combat, I love blowing crap up, I love multiplayer, playing with my friends, but most importantly, it's great to have a story with characters you can relate to.
What can you say? Thank you.